You married into this family, but you still prioritize your mother before us. Do you think that's acceptable? It's your punishment for neglecting the housework. Get out.
She sarcastically criticizes me whenever she sees me. However, in front of Josh and my father-in-law, she's cheerful with a smile on her face. I've been overwhelmed by this gap and haven't been able to talk to Josh about her bullying. Since I haven't resisted her, she's been increasing her maliciousness toward me. Working once a week, we all have dinner together at the main house. One night, she mentions, I want to ask Madison to clean the shed for me sometime soon. I always ask our cleaners, but I want her to be familiar with what's inside. She asks with an apologetic expression.
I'm Madison, a 28-year-old sales executive. My husband, Josh, and I are co-workers and still work at the same company. We've been married for 4 years and been living with my in-laws for about 1 year for a reason. As my in-laws are an affluent family and reside in massive compound, Josh and I are given our own small house away from the main building. We live separately but are very close to each other. Josh is the second son, and his older brother is supposed to inherit the family property since he has, has been temporarily, posted abroad for his work. We have moved in to take care of his house. Mother-in-law Janet does not think well of me and harasses me with sarcastic comments and little misdeeds. I've been struggling to deal with her. My father's side of the family has an old history, but he passed away from illness when I was very young. My mother raised me on her own. So a shed, I don't mind, but I don't see the point of me checking inside. And,
That's not true. As a family member who lives in this house, it's good for you to know about the history. She immediately denies my comment. If it's okay with you, honey, go right ahead. But we to Connor leaving as soon as my brother comes back. So you don't really have to. Even though you're married, you refuse to be a housewife and take advantage of living with your in-laws. Don't you realize how shameless you are? You must be greedy with money coming from a single mother home. How can you not be satisfied with Josh's income?
Josh helps me out. I don't have any special plans for my next day off. So if you just want me to clean it up, I'd be happy to do it. I don't think I could go so far as to memorize or figure out what.
Well, start cleaning.
I'm stunned at the state of the shed as she turns to leave. How do you want me to clean it? You're not making me do it alone, are you? I ask her out of disbelief. Of course, you always neglect your housework using your job as an excuse. You should be doing more on your days off. Just get on with it. She puts on a disgusting smile and shuts the door, leaving me inside. I hear a questionable clanking sound. She yells from outside the door, I'll check on you every hour. I'll let you out of here when it's perfectly clean, so get on with it. She has locked the door and left me inside.
Well, take this opportunity to get a good sense of the value of all this today.
I've been cleaning since early morning, and she's finally satisfied in the evening. I am able to escape from the dingy shed at last. I wasn't even allowed to have lunch. I walk back home, feeling lightheaded, and am determined to speak to Josh about it.
I'm sorry to do this as soon as you're home, but I need to talk to you about something.
When I mention it, he senses something. When I mention it, he senses something.
He's just at my mother.
Happy and I'm surprised, but I start explaining what happened today and how Janet's been treating me. He listens attentively and apologizes to me.
I'm really sorry that I didn't realize it before. I know she sometimes looks down on people and harasses them in small ways when she doesn't like something. This is the first time here she's done something to that extent. I'm confused as to why I should believe you every word. I mean, I can't make a clear judgment right away.
I haven't said anything about it to you for a long time, and I understand that you don't want to believe anything bad about your mother. I'm not asking you to do something about it right away. I just don't want to be alone with her as much as possible from now on.
I'm so exhausted that I don't even wait for his reply and pass out on the bed. The subject has remained open. I try to stay away from the main house as much as possible and don't join the weekly dinner, using my work as an excuse.
I wonder if Madison doesn't think well of me asking her to clean the shed. I don't want her to be mad at me.
Josh has been even more confused about what to make of the difference between what I've told him and what Janet has been saying. She's explained to him about locking me inside the shed as I'll never do such a thing, and Madison was so absorbed in her work that she forgot to take lunch.
I'm sorry I didn't remind her. I didn't feel comfortable interrupting someone who was concentrating on the work.
Then one day, I get a call that my mother has collapsed, and I rush to the hospital. The doctor tells me that she has been suffering from terminal cancer and that she has asked him not to mention it to me before. I let Josh know that I'm going to stay with her for the remaining days. Shortly thereafter, she passes away slowly and peacefully. Unable to accept the reality, I'm stunned by the sudden departure of my loved one.
Also, your mother won't be at ease unless you give her a proper send-off.
I managed to hold myself together thanks to Josh's support. She has left me many vintage designers' apparel and antique ceramics, which were her hobbies as mementos. I take them back to my house and keep them for the time being. Then the disaster happens while I'm sorting out the medical bills and inheritance. When I arrive home, I see smoke rising from the incinerator, which has been hardly used in the yard. When I start sorting out my late mother's belongings, I find that most of them have gone missing. I immediately think about the smoke and rush to the site with a bad feeling.
What in the crazy world are you doing?
If you're home, why don't you let me know you're back? What are you doing here today?
Why do you have them here? Give them back!
You're so vulgar, snapping at me. Actually, they're not worth much anyway, so I thought I'd help you get rid of them.
I'm saying, what are you talking about?
It's your punishment for neglecting the housework. Get out of here.
You're not doing that without knowing the true values of those items, are you? You say you've lived a first-class life surrounded by first-class things? Those are worth at least $100,000. I'm gonna press charges on you.
I declare that much, and then gather up the scattered items on the ground.
You gotta be kidding me. You can't try to cheat me out of my money. Better leave, Josh.
Ignoring her ranting and raving, I pack up my belongings and leave my in-laws' house to stay at an apartment where my late mother lived. I go through the items and realize that many are still missing, and the remains have been damaged by being trampled on or mishandled. I immediately call the attorney who assisted me with my late mother's estate and ask him to start the process of property damage charge. I immediately called the attorney who assisted me with my late mother's estate and asked him to start the process of properly charging for the property damage. I also called Josh and explained the situation to him. I then explained everything that had happened to Josh. I told him that I was going to file a charge against Janet and that I would never want anything to do with her in the future. I also mentioned that I would not interfere in any way between him and his mother, but that I would like to divorce him if I had to continue dealing with her. I sent him a video of Janet burning my late mother's belongings and let him hear the voice recording of her rant. That instead of coming to an ambiguous conclusion, like last time, he was forced to recognize that Janet had been malicious toward me. Her behavior this time was way out of line, and I reiterated to him that I never ever want anything to do with her. At first, he was still somewhat reluctant to believe what I was telling him was true, but with the evidence, he was forced to accept it. He sincerely apologized to me and promised that he would settle ties with her as well. I'm relieved to hear that, and then I again spoke to my attorney to calculate the damages. When the calculation was done, I visited my in-laws with the claim. My in-laws had been notified in advance, and both of them were there to greet us. First, my attorney told them that Janet's actions fell under the charge of destruction of property, and the value of damages was more than $100,000.
Wait a minute. They're just some clothes and ceramics. They can't be that much money. Things go down as they age.
Janet snickered and denied the amount of money. I'm sure as I've asked an appraiser to confirm the value of each item.
You telling me that you who have been living a first-class life surrounded by first-class things don't recognize the worth of those items?
When I snickered back at her, her face turned bright red. My attorney patiently explained that she's indeed correct if things are not well taken care of. However, my late mother's collections fall into a rare and high-demand category, and the value has jumped because they've been produced in such small quantities or the artists have already passed away. He carefully explains that each item has been reappraised at the time of inheritance. After listening to this, Janet still keeps fussing. My father-in-law, who has been quiet all this time, finally opens his mouth and says, "Be quiet." He silences her at once and asks me if I remember the date when I cleaned the shed. To my surprise, surveillance cameras have been installed inside and outside of the shed for security purposes. He suggests we check the footage from that day. The data from the recordings has just barely survived. It starts showing Janet and me. Then only she comes out of the shed. Then she locks the door from the outside, which is clearly shown on the screen. The view of her checking on me randomly and finally me coming out of the shed staggering are all recorded in front of us. Moreover, there's even a recording of Janet bringing boxes of clothes and ceramics to the incinerator, and burning them one after another. He says, "Explain this."
She stammers, Madison has been neglecting our home. She has only cared about her mother for so long. I thought I would punish her a little.
Isn't it normal for anyone to take care of their mothers? Besides, we are indebted to her for living with us and taking care of the house while Morgan's away. We asked her to do so.
But she married Josh, so she should give priority to her husband's family.
You send money to your own family every month, don't you? You leave the housework to the staff, and you don't even do anything yourself. He stands up from his seat and comes in front of me. He says, "I am truly sorry for everything she has done. She will pay for the damages."
But she married Josh, so she should give priority to her husband's family. She agrees to make amends for the damage, but she pleads not to file a legal proceeding. She promises to pay me a settlement instead.
After consulting with my attorney, I accept her offer with a condition. She must work and pay from her own pocket. As for the damages, my father-in-law will advance the payment, but Janet will pay. As for the damages, my father-in-law will advance the payment, but Janet will pay him back. Josh hardly says a word during the discussion. He's stunned by the sight of his mother, who has always been sweet, ranting. It's worse than he ever imagined. Thus on the way home, I had never seen my mother so crazy. I was in disbelief.
He slumped his shoulders as he mumbled.
After that, my father-in-law sent Janet back to her parents and terminated the financial support. He's also demanding she repays him for the advancement, and she's been asking Josh and his brother for help. As for me, I've sent some of the damaged items for repair at Josh's expense. Some of them have been restored to their original condition. Since they've been a waste of treasures in my possession, I've donated them to charities for auction, except for the ones with special memories. Janet has never worked before and has only experienced a financially comfortable life. She finds a job but gets fired for causing problems or quits her own immediately. My father-in-law told me, "I don't think she will complete the payment anytime soon from the way things have been going." He asked, "Should I pay you first?" I refused, and instead, I set a deadline for the payment of the settlement through my attorney. Janet and her parents were informed that if the deadline wasn't met, I would press charges. Her parents are so concerned about their public image that they sent her to work at a factory owned by a relative. She's been managing to make the installment payments since then. Although my father-in-law has been fed up with her, he is not considering divorce.
I don't want to get involved with my mother, but I need to keep in touch with my father. Is that okay with you?
I've been receiving the settlement as long as I don't have to let her in the future. I'm not going to stop you from doing anything.
His brother is coming home at the end of this year. He's yet to marry and has been questioning Janet. "If I get married, are you going to bully my wife too? Depending on her attitude, she may not be allowed to return. Depending on her attitude, she may not be allowed to return home. We've started a new life in a new residence. Josh has been keeping in touch only with his father and has been hearing about his mother from him. I haven't forgiven her for what she's done. I don't know if I will ever be able to. I'm hoping that in the unlikely event she ever reforms, she would apologize to me in person, right? Now I'm enjoying my life alone with Josh. I know he's a little unreliable, but I would like to build a happy family that reassures my mother in heaven.